Welcome to Keep It, Cricket Media's show about pop culture and politics and what happens when they smack into each other at an alarming speed. I'm your host, Ira Madison III, a television writer and Fall Out Boy fan.
I'm Louis Bertel. I'm a TV writer and Jane Fonda historian.
Let's get into it.
And we're back with a new episode of Keep It. I'm Louis Bertel, but nothing else here is the same. I don't even remember Ira's last name. Did he contribute much to this show? From what I remember, he knows nothing about game shows. Anyway, moving on. We have two guests here today, since Ira is off traveling. What was he doing? Covering the war? Yeah, we'll throw to Ira in Beirut at some point. No, today we have my very good friend, one of the funniest people I know, Solomon Giorgio, who's his credits include, by the way, everything. I'll be at a party with Solomon. I'll be like, "What are you working on right now?" And the answer is 3 things. He's a fabulous stand-up. One of the wittiest people I know. Mm-hmm. Welcome to Keep It.
Thank you so much. I've not been doing much lately, which is great.
Okay. You've done too much.
I've done too much. The strike came in at the right time.
Yeah. I will say, what's your strike strategy? When you go to the picket, do you talk to a lot of people? Do you talk to nobody?
Oh, I walk in silence. I'm the Lance Bass of the chants. You cannot find my voice.
It's just you, frosted tips, and silence.
Just walking around, and then until my legs are tired, and I go, you know what? It's time to go home.
Got it. And our other guest is equally esteemed. I controversially invited 2 adults here today, which will change the timbre of the podcast entirely. She is a fabulous critic. Just read her review of The Flash and Vulture the other day, but if she knows movie history back and forth, I would rather talk about Bette Davis with no one else. It's Angelica Jade Bastien reporting from Chicago. Hi, Angelica.
Hello, bringing fabulousness and Chicago energy to this podcast, which is not like The Bear. If that's your idea of Chicago, it's much more interesting than that.
You know, can I say about The Bear, the one thing I couldn't get past I'm from the Chicago suburbs myself, it didn't remind me of Chicago at all. I kept thinking we were in Boston or something.
Yeah, it's like very weird show in that regard because it's, I thought it was a cute show and I was like, oh, we'll see where it goes in the second season. But it's very easy to clown on the Chicago stuff because it doesn't feel like Chicago. It doesn't have that very broad-shouldered, sort of welcoming, slower pace energy that Chicago has. And then there's like little details that I'm like, oh, y'all bitches don't be knowing Chicago. Because I was like, why does he have a 773 tattoo? Who cares about that area code? It's 312. That's what people care about.
Yes. I rock a 630 over here, which is not legit at all. But anyway. Anyway, I've invited my friends here to discuss things, frankly, I normally wouldn't discuss. First of all, this movie called The Flash came out, which, as I understand it, is part of what is known as a comic book. A comic, and not like Rodney Dangerfield. This is like drawings they stitch together. I learned this all just the other day.
Your reference point for a stand-up comic is Rodney Dangerfield.
You know what? Still slaps.
Yeah, no, I love it, but it's a great reference point. But yes, comic books, and I feel like The Flash is a very good comic. It is old. It is like the 50s. Is the first one.
Yeah, he's a really interesting character who's kind of like maintained a sort of Silver Age vibe, which is like a zaniness that is nowhere to be found in this movie. It's really weird the approach they took to this movie. I am still baffled by it, to be honest.
We will get to that momentarily, and then we will move to a broader conversation about our favorite summer blockbusters ever. And I have to tell you, I ended up thinking hard about this because I wasn't sure what I really wanted ultimately out of a summer blockbuster, since, my ideal movie is Rabbit Hole, which is not like that. So we'll pick the criteria for that, pick our favorites in that regard, and then we'll invite these 2 very spicy people to pick Keep It's also, which should be, I'm really thrilled about. And then also, Ira actually momentarily returns. We have an interview this week with star of Asteroid City and every other Wes Anderson pop-up book in history, Jason Schwartzman, who is a delight to talk to. Looks fabulous. A beard really works on Jason Schwartzman. I don't know if you guys have thought about this recently, but we will get into that momentarily right after this. Well, since Ira is not here, it falls on me, Louis, to talk about a comic book. Keep on with the Speed Force. Don't stop till you get enough. See? Am I involved yet? Am I getting it? The Flash premiered this weekend, and response from the fans has been off to a slow start. The controversy surrounding Ezra Miller did not help. Controversy, we pretend like that was singular. It was an ongoing, baffling saga where each story seemed to elicit a response from 3 other different people that made the situations all the more confusing.
Yeah. He terrorized a whole set of islands for 6 months.
Yeah, right. Full Carmen Sandiego villain. Is this an omen for all the other upcoming summer blockbusters? I guess I'll start this conversation by asking, what is your history with The Flash? Angelica, you just told us this was your entry into this entire universe of creativity.
Yeah, I mean, for me, around 10 years old, Mark Waid's run on The Flash dropped, Born to Run, which introduced Wally West, who was formerly Kid Flash, as now taking on the mantle of The Flash. So my version of The Flash has always been more Wally West because of that, and like Justice League Unlimited and Justice League, the cartoon, that had the involvement of people like Dwayne McDuffie, R.I.P., one of the greatest Black writers and artisans in the comic book world. So I come into The Flash with a lot of love for the mythos and this character, which is basically the exact opposite of how Warner Brothers feels about any character in DC Comics that doesn't have the name Bat and Man in it, or even Superman. They don't seem to know what to do with. So I was like, this is going to be I was already like, this is probably going to be a mess, but whoa, it was so bad. I'm still baffled. I'm like, why did they make these decisions? Who is this for? What is the point of doing a movie with The Flash if you're just going to swagger jack Batman and Superman as if the character's own mythos and villains don't matter? I'm like, this is like a film that's leading to nowhere. It is so pointless. It is astounding. I mean, that closing cameo joke kind of told me, oh, this movie is just nothing. I think I wrote in my review, it's just brand management and flailing motion. It is.
It's interesting because I would say, so there's a multiverse component of this movie, as there are to, I guess, 99% of movies now. And it feels like each sort of tendril into another universe is really to lead to a quote-unquote in-joke for the audience. Like, oh, that Batman actor is appearing now. Or, it's like this sort of like self-congratulatory Ouroboros we're getting in where it just like we've sort of exhausted the possibilities of what the multiverse can offer us, or they're just not as interested in exploring what it does. But anyway, Solomon, you're also a fan of the original comics.
I'm a fan of the original comic book. I also am... I kind of know a little bit about what's going on in the movie, which is them trying to bring together all the other DC films into like one sort of unit.
Not real.
Was
this is what's weird about the movie. You would think that's what they would do. If you're going to riff on the Flashpoint comic from 2011, the whole point is, oh, we're going to actually change things. But, calling it or referring to it as a snake eating its own tail is the right way to put it, because it's actually weirdly mostly beholden to Zack Snyder in terms of the aesthetic, in terms of the world. And it's kind of weird how they don't reference a lot of DC things. Because it's like, if you're so obsessed with bringing back past Batmans, it's going to be very glaring that nothing Christopher Nolan is really alluded to at all amongst all these worlds. So it just makes DC Universe feel very claustrophobic, and like the only real characters are like Batman, Superman, and riffs on them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's kind of wild to me that the CW is doing a better job of bringing these characters together than an entire film industry. Like it's,
which, by the way, it's worth noting that the quote unquote production on this movie truly began around 2007, before the Flash TV series. So basically Grant Gustin was born after the conception of
hysterical.
What we saw on the screen. But something that's really worth talking about is Ezra Miller's performance, which I will say this. This sounds like I'm denigrating the performance. I would describe it as a pretty good Disney Channel performance, which is you give him a sitcom, you give this character a sitcom, and his whole thing is he's a little bit annoying, a little bit can't stop babbling. And I feel like it's rare that, a guy in a movie of this size is just annoying, which is a quality I ascribe that I feel like is a word that we usually lob at like females. I was reassured that they were making character choices that I felt weren't always endearing, which I feel like is a trap in these movies where they're so obsessively relatable out of the superhero costumes that they aren't people at all. They're just, people we're not mad at. Yeah, what did you think of Ezra's choices?
So I think most of the acting doesn't work really in this movie. So I don't want to put it at the feet of Ezra Miller. I think they at least make some choices that are kind of odd to the point where you kind of can't ignore them. It's not like they're just getting kind of lost in the scenery and the background. But the way they play Barry is incredibly obnoxious. And the one thing they really fail at, which I think is mostly because of the writing, or primarily because of the writing, is that none of the emotional stakes really work or matter. That's a huge problem in this movie. They ostensibly care about everything the Barry character is dealing with regards to his parents, his mother's murder, and his father's imprisonment. But the way Ezra plays it, I never felt the weight of anything that was going on. And I think a problem they are butting against as a performer is the film also doesn't care about these things. A glaring thing in this movie is we never learn who the fuck killed the mother. Who killed her?
Right. No, it's a full Scream type death where there's just a stabbing and we don't know what occurred there. By the way, I guess I should say we're going to spoil this movie again and again. We're going to get into a lot of cameos and stuff. So if you're particular about that kind of thing, stop listening to podcasts about pop culture. I blame you. Yeah.
You had a few days. For me also, like this, regardless of the whole situation going on in Ezra in real life, I think it was miscast to begin with because the character
definitely
is like Ezra as a performer is just a grim character, like, and the Flash is pretty likable and like joyful, like goofy, and you don't get that exuding from Ezra at all.
Yeah, no, the younger version of the Flash is just obnoxious teenager. You know what was giving for me? United States of Terra. It was just here comes another version of myself, except this time I'm moody and my arms are folded.
Oh gosh.
No, I do not. No shade to Toni Collette, who of course killed it on that Showtime series, but.
But yeah, I do feel like it's like the PE teacher at a substituting math teacher. Like, what's going on here? Like, you're not supposed to be in this room.
Yeah, I have nothing to learn from you. But yeah, as I said, there's a ton of strange cameos in this movie that some are successful. I would say maybe the best part of the movie is that Michael Keaton shows up as Bruce Wayne or not Batman. I feel like I can only say things wrong when I'm introducing characters in this movie. But I never thought of myself as a super fan of Michael Keaton, but it's occurring to me now, it is always nice to see him. I can't explain it. There's a gravitas there.
It is really nice to see him. And in a way, I think this vindicates him because, like, the way people reacted to his Batman for a long time was not, like, liking the world, but being like, why isn't... Batman fans are some of the most annoying motherfuckers in comic book fans. And I can't stand comic book fans the same way I can't stand cinephiles. If you describe yourself as a cinephile, you're probably an asshole. I would never describe you, me, or anyone I like that.
No one has ever said a kinder thing to me. Thank you so much.
But Tim Burton had to fight for Michael Keaton, didn't he?
He did have to fight for Michael Keaton. And so it's really interesting seeing him in this. I think he does bring at least a little energy, but I don't think anyone feels like they really want to be in this movie. It doesn't seem like they're able to kind of gain purchase on any of the emotional stakes or any of the comedy that should be there.
No comedy either. You're right. I can't think of a scene that would in this that Michael Keaton would be like, oh, I get to really sink my teeth into this. It really is just about the novelty value of he's appearing in this.
Exactly. It is all novelty value. And you can tell that on multiple levels. There's the way they inelegantly trot out the Danny Elfman score in crucial moments. But the thing that really cemented for me that this movie sucks dog shit was how they portrayed the Gotham that this future, older Bruce Wayne played by Michael Keaton inhabits. It is bland, it is sterile, if you were expecting any like real gothic excess because at all, you're not getting that. So I'm like, well, what's the point of taking the Tim Burton Batman if you're not going to play with the aesthetic world he inhabited? That's a big problem with The Flash. This movie visually is ugly as hell and has really no perspective or point of view on how to experiment with the multiverse. I feel like the multiverse narrative has potential, but the way Hollywood uses it is pretty much a dead end. It's not really for letting artists go wild with their imagination. It's more so, how can we extend this IP? How can we get people who maybe have fallen off but like the old shit to come back? Let things die. Let it die.
This is what happens when you let studio execs believe that they're creatives, and they are not. Like they generally they market, they focus group everything to death, and it becomes, and they don't have like one person carrying on a vision, and they fire people that are they're idea people in the middle of filming stuff, and you're like, what are you doing? Right. You are making a $330 million mistake. That is insane.
Also, I think you're right. Like, nothing about this movie evokes the, I'm going to call it whimsy of the Tim Burton movies. Like, when you watch those movies, like the steam coming off the ground, like the way like a camera would pan in on a face and Jack Nicholson would let out a cackle or something. Like, there's no, I hate calling it camp, but like, you know, just something, that like the naughty fun of those movies. You get nothing about this is naughty. Like the look of this movie reminds me of computers. Like I'm watching someone at an edit bay work on this movie. That's like that's the aesthetic value you're getting here. There's just no it's flavorless. I would describe it as flavorless.
It's like I feel like with those Tim Burton movies, especially, like they are timeless. You can watch any of those original Batmans and they are forever. They still, like, especially Batman Returns, I think is one of the greatest DC movies ever made, and they should try to find a way to go back to that. But yeah, it's... Oh yeah,
and you will get nothing on the level of Michelle Pfeiffer in this movie. Let me just say that.
No, you mean a performance that could body pretty much everybody? It's such a weird movie because it almost feels like a fake movie to me. It almost feels like a movie that just like exists because they need to remind people that the DC universe exists. It also doesn't really make sense to me because I'm like, you know, if you're a comic book fan coming into this, you're noticing, they're name checking Flashpoint in a lot of ways. And Flashpoint, the 2011 crossover event, which led to the New 52, I do not like Flashpoint, but I find myself almost being like, well, at least they had imagination, right? It's the same sort of setup. He goes back in time, you know, to save his mom, and he fucks everything up. But when he fucks everything up, the changes are dramatic. It's not just, oh, look, there's an older Batman in a sterile Gotham. It's Bruce Wayne is the one who died in the alley, not his parents. So his father becomes Batman, and I think this is very sexist, but his mother loses her mind and becomes the universe's Joker, which I've always thought was a wild choice. And it's like Aquaman's a warlord, Wonder Woman is incredibly violent, and their kingdoms are fighting. It's like mayhem. And I'm like, the whole point of riffing on Flashpoint and using this premise is to play, right? It's to like go in wild directions and have some fun. It never feels like anyone involved in this production on any level had anything close to fun making this movie.
Right.
It is so grueling. It is so gray. It is so checked out of its own story. And it's just, I don't know, it makes me feel bad for like audiences. I'm like, don't go see this shit. It's a waste of your full attention. Hollywood is basically telling us, oh, we think y'all will eat up anything, because there's nothing this movie offers to anyone.
It's also like a key example of, I have this reaction to a lot of movies like this. Actually, it reminds me of Marvel's Jessica Jones, which was when you introduce this character and then it starts with some complexities and they have a strange past, unresolved past or whatever. I'm on board. And then once they get to the superpowers, it's like then the blandness sets in. I'm like, oh, she can pick up a car? Now I don't care. You know what I mean? It's like this doesn't have poetic resonance to me, ultimately. There are a couple other cameos in this movie that are fascinating. One concluding one that I was actually pretty surprised to see. But again, so you clap at the cameo, and it's, I guess I can say it is, George Clooney comes in right at the end. And he, of course, has, made fun of his own appearance in Batman and Robin several times. He's not a fan of the movie. I think he calls it his worst work. He's made tons of jokes about the nipples in the batsuit, whatever. He has one line here, but actually his cameo reminds me of the weakest part of this movie, which is I think even though I am affectionate towards certain parts of Ezra Miller's performance, not a single joke lands in this. Oh, I thought the audience in this watching this movie was dead silent when I was watching this. Like there's nothing hit, and I feel like that's the part of the movie where how don't they get that right? You know, even though. Another problem I have with these movies is the sense of humor is always the same. The heroes are always reacting to something, some gigantic disaster with that like gulp and that's not supposed to happen, or that's, you know, but it's like, oh my God, can someone, it's so multicam. The humor is so multicam on these. Did I forget a funny part? I guess I didn't.
I love that they Big Bang Theory entire Marvel DC movies. Like,
right.
No jokes. Because you need a laugh track to get those jokes to land. Otherwise, they don't.
No. And this movie could have used Melissa Rauch. I think she could have slayed it. Anyway, so I guess it's like a don't go ahead and see this movie. Though, I for my own sake, I'm happy. Once every 3 years, I make the trek to go see. I'm like, all right, what the fuck is Ragnarok? I'll try it. And then it turns out I'm still right about my own taste. So congrats to me for making it through it. Angelica, you have a fabulous review that should be inspected in Vulture.
And I'll continue not to watch it to support you guys' trashing of it.
I think you did the right thing. In just a second, I'll be right back with Ira to interview the lovely Jason Schwartzman.
We are so excited to have this incredible artist with us today. I don't even know which of his 100 projects that we're going to get to today, but Rushmore, Grand Budapest Hotel, Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, the list goes on, and right now you can catch him starring in the best movies out right now, Across the Spider-Verse, and Wes Anderson's new hit, Asteroid City. Please welcome to Keep It, Jason Schwartzman.
Hello.
Okay, so watching this movie and realizing you have now worked with Wes Anderson more than half your life, I assume this man knows you extremely well and has an idea of what you're going to bring to any given project. Do you have any opportunity to surprise him when you're working on a movie with him?
That's a great question. I think, honestly, yeah, I think that we've worked together like more than half my life. I don't know anyone else, I don't think, really, besides someone in my family that I've known for that long. It's so rare, and to be able to also work with that person, it's such a unique dynamic. I think like he, forgive this really cheesy metaphor, but I just came up with because I looked to my left at the street. But it's like a GPS, sort of like, you type in an address, and I've never pronounced it that way before. Address. I've never said address. Sorry, I don't want you to think I say that. It'll give you 3 routes. The longer way, but they're all going to this way, and it's a line on a phone or a map. And it's right turn here, left. That's sort of what it's like to have this script and to begin to work with Wes. But the walking, the trip, the actual steps you take, to walk 3 blocks is different than to look at 3 blocks from above. And so that's the stuff that is intent. You have no idea what's going to happen. So I think working with Wes is like, that's the great thing. It's like, trust that this person has some directions. They know where they want to go. And they've done all this work to find, this is the best way. Trust me, we're going to go down this avenue. We'll do this. But what happens along that walk? Who do you bump into? Do you tie your shoes? Do you walk by a broken light? I think that's all the stuff that he wants to have happen, and that's why he invites these, I think, incredible actors to come participate in the movie, because he wants, he encourages that, and he's like, that's what he's hoping for. He doesn't want every time I've tried to do something for Wes that I think this is what he wants, I've always been wrong.
That's so interesting, too, because I feel like this Asteroid City in particular is so interesting for a Wes film because, it's taking place in sort of 2 different worlds. You have the black and white stuff, which is the theater troupe
which I would suppose sort of mirrors what it's like to work with Wes on a project. I guess what's it like when you are coming in just as an actor with him, and then also you've collaborated with him to some extent on some of the other projects that you've done with Wes?
Well, I could say that I think there's a consistency or a continuity about Wes that I don't know anyone that works harder and does it in their own way. It's not I know people, you can work hard in different ways, but you know, the prototypical image, at least that I flashed you, of like someone who works really, really hard is kind of kinetic, calling, moving, you know, like coffee, you know, it's not that with what but it's just constant. And it's because he loves it. So it's instead of like doing something once a week because it's good for you, you do a little bit of it all day long because it sustains you. And he just works slowly and longer than anyone and cares more than anyone. It's all sort of the same feeling, which is that, you know, I think when we've worked together on scripts and things, it's really fun and really interesting to watch that process, because you're there, you know, essentially you're trying to do the same thing, which is help this person realize what they are getting at, what they're after. And I think that's what's great about Wes, is that you know, he doesn't make a movie because he knows all about it, or write something because he knows all about it. I found that he's very, like, it's always coming from a much more curious place. So the writing is kind of investigation into something he's interested in and learning about, and that continues into the on-set approach. So it's kind of similar in a way, except, you know, on one of them you're on a film set, the other one you're, you know, by yourself, I would say. But like when we work together on scripts, it's so fun because we act out all the scenes and we play the parts. I mean, it's not that different. It's just three of us and no cameras.
Something very specific about Wes Anderson, though, is I feel like maybe more than any other director, there's a musical sense of the dialogue in almost all the movies he does nowadays. And I feel like when you're on the set, you must be able to hear kind of the metronome of the movie as you're filming it. Does that mean you are doing a ton of takes to make sure you get that rhythm exactly right? Because I'm sure I can just picture him watching and knowing, you know, he's like J.K. Simmons in Whiplash, you know, not my tempo, do it again, Jason. You know?
Right. What I've observed or felt is that there is like a natural rhythm to just a conversation, or all that kind of talking over each other and when to speak. And by the way, Zoom, I mean, this whole thing it's so interesting how things are highlighted when the we can see when we're talking over someone. And so I think that with Wes too, it's there's definitely like it's important to know like the BPM in a way, like what is the tempo. But the great thing about Wes is like he's open to, you know, figuring it out. But on a movie like this, there's so many people, so many scenes, and it's like I think it would be sort of like, and not everyone's together. It's little stories that are connecting, and so, you know, even though we're there watching each other and supporting each other, you're also worrying about your scenes and thinking, and so you know, your job is to be responsible for your part of it, to do the best you can at your thing, and then it will all add up to something as what you, like a team. And I think that's Wes's, the great thing about a director or like a conductor or someone is like, it's letting each musician know where they are in the greater piece. Do you know what I mean? Because we're just zooming in on, you know, you can just zoom in on your own stuff. And so if you're just talking really, really fast, well, that's not like the standard answer, because well, if they're talking, not everyone can be doing the same thing at the same time all the time. And he's the one who has it sort of figured out, if it is a piece of music, the counterpoint. And so, there isn't just like a given tempo, but there's definitely that when you say music, I think there's definitely like a feeling of listening and parts complementing each other. You can't just, and respecting that and not just like going off on your own completely, but it's like, how do you play it? That really is the important thing.
Obviously, your first collaboration with him was, I believe, your first movie, which was Rushmore. You've never not been the star of movies. You're the star of that movie. And I just want to say, like, as I listen to you talk, there's a humility about you and a graciousness. How assured you are in that movie, that comedy performance is so unforgettable. I just rewatched it last night, was just loving it. The scene at the table with Olivia Williams and Bill Murray and Luke Wilson, just unforgettable.
Oh, yeah.
Where did you get that confidence? I mean, like, you had never been in a movie before. Just it's like a one-of-a-kind character, and you were completely him.
Well, thank you. And it's fun. I really don't know, other than when I went to the audition for that movie, one thing that stood out was I remember Wes asking me an opinion about something, like about a hat and I gave him my answer, and he listened to it. And I remember thinking in that moment, I mean, I'm sure it's happened here and there, other parts, but that was a defining moment for me in my life, because I thought, besides my family or something, this is the first time anyone like who's an adult, even though he was so young, but is asking me what I think about something, and like cares like about the answer. Like, I had never felt like my opinion was really worth not much. Do you know what I mean? Like, it was like, and I was like sort of stunned by that. Like, and I think that sort of, and I think he encouraged, he loves people and actors, and he likes talking to people. And I think, so once we got onto the set, I was so scared. And I just remember he said, just stick with me. We'll stay together and we'll do it. We're gonna get through it. And what a nice thing to hear in such a chaotic time of one's life, or, it's just all new. And he must have been probably freaky. I don't know what he was. I mean, how did he get the confidence? I don't know. But like, to me, hearing that, I was like, okay, like, it was what I needed. It was like a lighthouse. Like, it was like, and I lived by that. Any confidence or anything like that, maybe just because I said to Wes at one point early on, so does my character look up to Bill Murray's character? And he goes, no, I don't think you look up to him. I think you see eye to eye with him. And that was such a funny, great, amazing idea. And I think because it was so foreign to me as an idea, it was really enjoyable to do. Because it was like a slight feeling of, this is a wonderful feeling to like be taken serious. And I think Wes, but Wes, I think, was encouraging that by asking me questions and listening to me. Was already encouraging this thing of, you are valuable and have an idea, and even though if you're 17, whatever, it's okay to state how you feel or be confident, and people can take you. You know what I mean? Like, I think that was the beginning of that, maybe in some way.
So interesting, because then you play sort of like basically the opposite of that in one of my favorite films of yours, which is Shop Girl. You're sort of like more of an aimless character who doesn't see eye to eye. And then, of course, you have the whole thing going on with Steve Martin as well. And his words, too. I love Steve Martin as a writer, too. So it must have been nice to, like, work with him as he had written this, but then you're also acting opposite him.
Cruel Shoes, his book Cruel Shoes is a real important book to me. And his writing is amazing. His Born Standing Up is an incredible book, and the audio book of it, he in fact reads and performs. It's a really great experience if you've got the time. And yeah, he is someone that has meant a lot to me growing up. And I think without knowing it when I was very young, but getting it more even now and watching movies of his with my kids, stuff is his use of language and the way he uses words is a distinguishing quality. But he smuggles it in such you don't realize it. And that's, I think, the beauty of it. You know what I mean? I feel like that with him, like he makes everything sound like you're just talking to, and then later you go, wow, he was talking to me about all these things that were so, heavy. And I was nervous. I only had a few scenes of them in real life, but in the movie, because we are, I guess, competitors, but he was there every time I worked, and I was so scared. I mean, I didn't know what to do. I was like, maybe that helps with the character. Like, I don't know. Like, I remember when I went to meet him, I thought for sure there's no way this is going to work because, I'm not sure. Movies and music, these things do mean a lot to me, and I'm never sure how to navigate telling someone that you admire is that going to make it weird? Like, is it, you know what I mean? And I just remember, like, Steve Martin probably does not want to talk about his work and talk about this. And so we had to meet and talk and go through it all a few times. And I was like preparing for this meeting with him. Like, it was like almost like I was not in training, but I was like, okay, don't say this, say this, try not to do this, really like, and I remember saying, like, don't just talk about this movie. You don't be so free. He wants to talk about this. He's an artist. This is where he's at. Let's just begin here. And I remember walking in and sitting down. I was like, hi, I just want to say Three Amigos is one of my favorite movies of all time. And it meant a lot to me. And I'm really happy to be here. Like, everything went out the window. And I also remember I had written on my hand, like, 3 things that I thought were important about Shop Girl for the movie. And that were like I really felt like they were just like key bullet point things, but I knew what they all meant. And that was what I was coming to speak about. By the time we got to talking, I was so nervous. I looked down at my hand, it was just blue. It was it was horrific. And so, but it was a good lesson, just to be in the moment. But yeah, he's the best.
So even hearing you talk about like the musicality of his writing and Wes, I forgot that you were also in a band before you left, you were in Phantom Planet before you became an actor. Interesting to be like, I'm in a band, but I'm like, I want to leave music and performing and be a performer in a different type of way. So. Yeah.
I mean, very unusual. It's just oversimplify it, but the truth is that I think growing up, for me at least, like, we lived near Westwood, so near a bunch of movie theaters in Los Angeles. So lots of movies playing in single theaters, and coming out on Friday, going to the movies was something that I looked forward to it. And I would go with my father, my brother. It was a real, on Friday nights waiting in line, and movies that I was seeing at that age, I guess, were huge comedies or also big blockbuster. That was what was available and playing in these theaters. And I never once looked at a movie and was like, I'm going to be up there. So it just was not, but music, because Hollywood, like, movie, it was so big, it was an event. You drive to the theater, big screen, there was like something so big about it. Mm-hmm. Whereas music at that exact time, I had a cassette player and I could take it with me from room to room. I don't know if it makes sense, but it's a different, like, it became it was mine. Just technologically speaking, the way you could experience it was just so much more personal and private. And that's why there's the, cliche of someone just like putting on headphones and said, like, it meant a lot to me. And so I definitely, I love movies, just like seeing movies. But music was like, this is what I hope to be able to do, because it was like very early on, it was like music meant everything to me. And so yeah, and it still does. I need it.
I don't think I have ever asked this of a guest before, but I want to ask this because she is your co-star in Megalopolis, which I've learned from Wikipedia. But how is your mom? One of the great screen stars, Talia Shire.
She's great. Thank you. She's amazing. She is really amazing, actually. The truth be told, she's actually in New York, currently in New York working here for the last little while. I didn't really know what my mom did, to be honest, for much longer than you would maybe assume to not know what one's parents do. But I remember definitely being aware when I go to friends' houses that records or books or movies, television, they were never on. They were just there. Whereas in our house, there's music playing in one room, and there's like a movie playing, and there's books. Like, and I remember taking note of that, not just like, oh, maybe are we messy or something. No, what I took from it was like, I see that my mom is someone that, like, these are not just like, she like is like lives. This like sustains her. You know, it's like nutritious. I remember clocking that as like a 4-year-old, like, we always have music on. Like, I don't know what the music was. You know, you're not thinking that's it, but just like that was and I think that was kind of like the beginning of, I don't know. I guess if you're asking how she is, I just want to thank her for inadvertently being like filling the space up with, you know, appreciating, you know, music and movie art and stuff, and not realizing it deep down that it was all sort of just a wonderful, I don't know, just life lessons. But the way she did it was in a wonderful way. But she's like but she can't help but be an actor. I mean, she loves teaching acting too. My son, her grandson, my son, he came over one day and he goes, all right, watch this. He'd been with my mom all day, and he laid on the ground and pretended to do something. And he goes, now that's that. Now watch this. And then he did it again, totally differently. He goes, which one did you like better? It's like, I don't know. He's like, the second one was more real, right? Charlie taught me to do it. If you don't move your right arm. And it wasn't like, to be an actor, it's because it's a sharing and enthusiasm of just studying life and people. My mom was always like encouraging us, like everywhere we, you know, be sitting someplace, you'd say, where's that person going? Like, what's their house like? What's their ride home like? How long did it take them to get here? Like, ever since we were little, she's always like, it's always about asking questions about people's lives. How does that person feel? Is that, when's the last time they ate something? When's the last time they had a drink? And these are things that when you're like 9 and you're at a mall, they're pretty annoying. Do you know what I mean? It's like if you have a friend who's like reading like a ton of like self-improvement books at once, and just like everything they say is like, you know, there is no being lost, really. You know, it's like, okay, just shut up. There is actually being lost. We're supposed to be on this street, and we're not there, and that is technically the definition of being lost. But so it was annoying. But I'm just saying, looking back, and it's kind of all hitting me now because this movie is about actors. Ultimately, if you zoom out, you know, it's about actors and the work that goes into it, and it's really like Wes's kind of love letter to acting, and he just loves watching actors work and stuff. And I think as I zoom out now, talking to you, I haven't thought about this, but I really want to thank her, because that's like, without realizing, that's sort of where I think it became, like, I noticed it in some way.
I love that. And honestly, in a way, it's almost like you sort of mirrored her. You know, you're working with Wes and collaborating with him on so many films. And I mean, what an honor. I mean, it must have been so fun for her, to have originated two iconic characters, Connie Corian, Adrienne, and to be able to play them multiple times. And revisit them. So.
Yes, you're right. Absolutely. I never thought about that, but yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
It's true.
Thank you for being here, Jason.
Yeah, what a pleasure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So fun.
This year we have a return to blockbuster franchises with a new installment of Indiana Jones. I am not loving those reviews. Transformers and the Marvel catalog. But what are the franchises and summer blockbusters we love most? EW has a great list of the 30 best summer blockbusters of all time. There's a 75 best summer blockbusters of all time list from Rotten Tomatoes. Type it into the internet. It keeps coming up. We'll start with you, Solomon. What does a summer blockbuster mean to you? What do you look for? Do you like them?
I guess there's also, like, for me, like, I don't know if it's considered blockbusters, but it's those the sleeper indie hits that become big blockbuster movies, and those are the ones that I end up falling in love with, because that's kind of what happened in the 90s. Like, all these movies just became big hits. But also, I love the way, because there used to be not that many of them. There was like 3 or 4 summer blockbusters when we were younger, and they were just, I loved going to see trailers, and especially during some. So that's, for me, that's always like the big trailers, the big flashy. They always, so many of them, and you have to wait months for you to even see them outside of the theater. And now it just feels like that's not the case as much as it used to be, and every movie's trying to be a blockbuster.
Right. Yes. It's right there in the budget. Yes.
But like, I think for me, like, I will always like. I just like Kill Bill 1 and 2 are my favorite. The first one came out in October. The second one came out in the summer. And that one, Kill Bill Volume 2, was like, for me, was just like fully like waiting patiently at the edge of my seat for something. And that was like the perfect blockbuster for me.
I can't think of another movie-going experience I've had like that, where you watch the first one and then there's just like an extra breath before you see the second one. And you had to see it. And I liked the first one well enough, but I personally like the second volume a lot better.
It's stylistically, it's insane. I loved, and Daryl Hannah her character was built in like more into it, and I truly, every aspect of it I enjoy. And like to this day, I still style myself off of Uma Thurman's outfits from Kill Bill.
Oh God, yes. I will say though, I think my favorite scene in both of those is Vivica A. Fox in the first one with the cereal box. Vernita Green. Yes. I love that character, and I love that casting. She's so amazing in it.
But also, I think Bill's death is one of my favorite. Like the whole 7-point thing, and he had to like 5 steps before he died.
Yes.
And,
right.
Oh, that was. And then like the Mama Bear ending with her daughter. Like that's just it's for me. It's such a perfect film. It is.
Angelica, what's your history with summer blockbusters? Do you have favorites? What are your criteria? Go on.
So I find the summer blockbuster an interesting form, partially for the reasons you mentioned about, they were rare. They would be solely in the summer. Now blockbusters are kind of throughout the year. I mean, it's really intriguing. I have to shout out my first film I ever saw in theaters. This is what my mom tells me. This is what she says was my first movie. I don't remember it, but I think, I appreciate that this was my first. Jurassic Park. That is like a platonic ideal of what a traditional summer blockbuster should do. If you're going to go big, go big. Play with the visuals. Give us artistry. Give us real characters. Give us real stakes. Make it feel like this world has meaning, and you don't have to make the stakes the world ending, the universe collapsing all the time. It can just be, damn, are these bitches going to survive or get eaten by dinosaurs? But there's a lot of summer blockbusters I like. I mean, Speed, that movie's fun as hell. Twister, childhood favorite.
And we're getting Twisters soon. Come on now.
Oh, there's a sequel coming?
Yeah, there is. And I guess it can kind of count this year. I really did like Across the Spider-Verse when it comes to a big multiverse movie. I think it does what a multiverse movie needs to do and that everyone else is kind of failing at. So I think the form of the blockbuster can be a lot of fun, but the fact that it has become the primary form that Hollywood thinks of movies through is the problem. And I think a lot of filmmakers and execs have learned the wrong lessons from the successful blockbusters of the past. They think by bringing them back and prolonging the story, that's what drew people to these worlds. And I'm like, no, a lot of what worked with these movies is that they felt fresh. They, you know, they
had
don't...
a sense of occasion to them. Yeah, right.
Yes.
They're treating entire movies like a filler episode. It's really essentially what it is. It's like, why do we have a background story of a character that doesn't matter to this whole entire thing? But that's essentially what they're doing.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
it is.
I will see this Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny movie because I can't explain it. Phoebe Waller-Bridge did something or achieved something where I have to follow her for at least 10 more years. I don't know. I'm a big fan of what she does. I think she has a genuine droll quality, which is so rare in somebody who achieves that much success. You know, it's a quality I associate with like indie comedies and stuff, and someone you have to really like explain to your friends who they are and like hope they bubble up one day. But she really has. I mean, she's been in Solo. Now she's in Indiana Jones. So, I mean, she basically couldn't be any bigger based on a brand she established herself on a TV show she wrote herself. So very rare. That said, if I had to pick a favorite blockbuster ever, I think I am going to go with Raiders of the Lost Ark. And I will say this. First of all, it has what Angelica just said, which is great characters. I feel like when there's a lacking, if you can't have a movie about set pieces and then not juxtapose it with a personality that is sui generis and rad, basically. You know, like Jurassic Park has 3 or 4 characters who I haven't seen them in other movies. They only are in that movie. And I feel like a lot of attention has to be paid to the personality and not just the quote-unquote quirks the character has. Make them seem like real adults or real kids or whatever. Find a way to get like banal but unexpected versions of humanity to put into the movie.
Yeah,
you know?
it's like it's so layered, but also at the same time, Nazis are getting their faces melted.
Yes.
And it's like you can have these two things exist. It's insane, campy, like story along with like really well put together actors. Like it's,
yes, yeah. Make sure that they have moments between each other that remind us, oh, we're watching people like us, the audience, in the movie. This seems sort of basic, but something I love about Raiders of the Lost Ark, I think. The best version of a summer blockbuster to me is all about the set pieces. There should be an American Ninja Warrior quality to these movies where it's like you've got this obstacle course thing, now you got to climb up that thing. It's culminating with this weird jump off a mountain, which I do have to say, I think maybe the Mission Impossible series has graduated into becoming the best action series of all time. Just in terms, you know, you can expect stunts, and then they always go about getting to them in an unusual way. I'm not going to sit here and extol the virtues of Tom Cruise. I find him like fun enough to watch. I'm not obsessed with him, but and it always bothers me when people pretend like it's novel to announce that he's a good actor. Girl, he has 3 Oscar nominations. He's been famous for a million years. It would be bizarre if he weren't an engaging actor.
He's been famous longer than I think we've been alive, honestly.
Yes, at least me, yeah.
Me as well.
Yeah, Risky Business is 83. So I think I would say, and in terms of not just a set-piecey summer blockbuster, I think Airplane counts as a summer movie, came out during the summer. And just, this is a movie that comes up a lot in this podcast, but it's one of the few movies where it is unfair to pick a favorite part because literally there's always something else in the movie that was just as deranged or just as unexpectedly cutting or something you haven't seen in another movie, and I watch it every year. So in terms of something I revisit, Airplane would be my summer blockbuster. Are you a fan of it, Angelica?
Yeah, it's funny thinking about the summer blockbuster and how unfunny they are.
Yes.
Like, where's the comedy? The characters make quips, but they're not actual real built up jokes. We're in a very strange time. When Solomon said something about how, you know, a lot of these movies are filler, I kind of think we're living in a filler era. That's like a theory I'm kind of mulling over because it seems like everything is just a stopgap for something else. Like, that's kind of how I felt watching The Flash too. I was like, oh, the good thing's gonna happen. Like it has to, right? Something good. Oh wait, the movie's over? Oh shit. Okay, I guess nothing good is happening.
Yeah, your good part is in another castle. You're like, oh, I thought we got here. No, wait, there's more to come.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I will say about funniness in these movies? Harrison Ford historically has been a pretty good gap between the excesses of a summer blockbuster and then the funny character moments you need to sustain yourself through the kind of audacious stunt building. I think we haven't had many Harrison Fords in that way. Like, I think the best part of Star Wars is his line readings.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I think he's hilariously not into the shit in there. It's great. He casts some, like, he gives friction to things, which I really like because he just tolerates no bullshit. I like that sort of energy from him. And to kind of piggyback on something you said a little earlier with Raiders, I think Raiders and like a good summer blockbuster does something interesting with the human body through stunt work. And if it's not really showing the limits and wonder of the human body, then why the hell am I here?
Yeah. No, literally, like watching Helen Hunt run from a twister, I'm like, I just don't know that I would ever see her run otherwise. You know what I'm saying? There's an urgency here. Yeah. She wasn't up and she wasn't wearing a tracksuit in the movie The Session. She and Paul Reiser were not, hitting the hurdles and mad about you.
Look, she made a great action actor. It is very weird. It's her and Nicolas Cage. I'm like, why are you guys? What are we doing here?
Yes, right. I think that is an interesting quality about certain blockbusters, though, is like someone who doesn't belong in a blockbuster. Casting them, I think, automatically makes it more interesting.
It makes it more like, look, Con Air, was it The Rock or the Con Air? I can't remember which one, but both of them are insane, and those both were like, I love those movies. But, but Nicolas Cage is the weirdest action hero of all time.
Right. No, I mean, like in like a year before he's in Leaving Las Vegas, a movie he belongs in.
Yes.
And then when we elevate him to these crazy movies with Diane Warren on the soundtrack, it's just like the strangest juxtaposition ever. I cannot stop thinking about the movie City of Angels. First of all, a movie we all bought the soundtrack to because it had that U2 song on it. It had Uninvited by Alanis Morissette and Iris by the Goo Goo Dolls. And we had...
I did not buy the soundtrack to that, but I believe other people did.
Okay, well, let me tell you I did. And it's like we had Nicolas Cage and Meg Ryan together as some sort of pair.
No.
Yeah.
Was he a paramedic in that one?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That sees the dead? Or
Yeah, right.
Okay.
It's, by the way, terrible. Imagine remembering it fondly. But the casting alone, just, that X factor of... why him and there should be a reluctant quality that wins us over eventually when it comes to these gigantic films. Are you a Nicolas Cage person, Angelica?
I really appreciate Nicolas Cage. I think it's really rare to watch actors that I can tell actually care about film as a medium. He cares about film. He cares about his choice. He makes some wild ass choices no matter where or what I'm watching him in. And I really appreciate that. More Nick Cage.
And when you watch an interview with him and he starts to explain why he made the choices he made, you come out more confused.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
That's what I like.
There's a puzzle brain in there. Like, there's a labyrinth and a bunch of smoke going on in the brain of Nicolas Cage that you never are able to figure out, which, by the way, sets him apart from, this is going to sound insulting, but like, actors who are really competent and really good on screen and logical, like this is just the person who came to mind, Amy Adams. I'm happy for those people, but I get Amy Adams. There's not like, she's not really giving me anything baffling. And I feel like you should baffle us every once in a while on the silver screen,
You should at least surprise us. And I think a lot of times actors like Amy Adams get into this like sort of wheel of, I need to get the accolades, and to do that, I need to do something expected. I need to do what they want. You should never give audience what they think they want. You give them what they actually need, which they usually aren't always aware of what they're really looking for.
I know, it's. I don't feel like there's kind of the two ways to play it. Like you could be like a Joe Pesci where you get the same kind of thing, but it's gonna be great. But you could also be like a Gary Oldman, who you get something completely different every single time. And I think But some people have been getting stagnant lately, especially the bigger actors. I'm like, so I kind of do miss that, where like the weird castings that are actually do work.
Gary Oldman is actually an interesting example because once upon a time he really would zig and zag from role to role. Like they had nothing to do with each other. And then as the years progressed, got a little bit more mainstream, then sort of found the roles that were more traditional, accolade earning. I mean, Darkest Hour is one of the most traditional Oscar movies of all time. But man, when you watch him in True Romance and that villain, guys, that is not a normal performance or look. And I mean, it's very jarring to see him in that movie.
It is. Drexel is the name of the character. I will never forget it because it is truly one of the wildest acting choices, and it's so I can't even explain the character. And then when you find out it's him, you're like, that's impossible.
No, right.
That is
this is maybe wrong. Yeah. Could the credits be incorrect? Yeah. Oh my God! No, that is. We watched that because we just had Patricia Arquette here last week. Fabulous performance from Patricia Arquette.
She's so underrated.
Anyway, throw us your favorite summer blockbusters. I'm sure there are several we have not thought of. I didn't expect to congratulate Harrison Ford so much during this conversation, but he is sort of the king of the genre, ultimately. We will be back with our favorite segment of the show, Keep It, in just a moment. And we're back with our favorite and meanest segment of the show. It's Keep It. Angelica, what do you have to say Keep It to this week?
Well, we're recording this the day after Juneteenth, which has me feeling a lot of things about how non-Black people interact with Black struggle. So I'm saying keep it to every non-Black, not just white, because some of y'all ain't white, non-Black person who I personally know is trifling with Black people sharing stuff about helping out niggas for Juneteenth. And side note, all you people I saw saying, oh, you got to help out Negroes. I don't see no money in my Venmo, and I know you're trifling. So keep that. Keep those little Instagram bullshit. You care about Negroes one day a year and then sometimes in February. I don't trust y'all. I know you don't like Black people. You only like Black art and what you can steal from us. So keep that.
First of all, for you to address Madonna like that, I found very troubling. She has a name. Second of all, literally for Juneteenth yesterday, I saw The Flash, and I believe I did my part because white people should spend time in hell on Juneteenth. You know what I'm saying?
I agree. I think white people should suffer.
A little bit.
Period.
Or like work twice as hard. I mean, just think logically about this for a moment.
Well, that's
you know
never
what I mean?
going to happen.
Yeah, I know.
They'd fall apart.
Yeah, I mean, did you guys do nothing for Juneteenth? What was your plan or struggle, or what did you do?
I was invited to a few things. I did what I love to do, which is not show up.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, what my ancestors would have done and wanted for me. So I took 3 good naps, and I deserved all 3.
That sounds beautiful. Our ancestors want us to rest. We are tired. We have been struggling for hundreds of years. We are tired. So what I did yesterday, I watched a Marlon Riggs film, Black Is, Black Ain't, which was great and amazing and one I hadn't seen before from his work. And I smoked a lot of weed and hung out with my great boyfriend. Black love, baby. That's right.
That's actual holiday behavior, by the way. Think of like the ritual we do for all these other ones. Like, I don't need someone like over a dinner worried. You know what I mean? Just like I don't need like Catherine O'Hara angst because somebody was left out of, you know, a Christmas time picture or something. Anyway, good for you.
I think specifically for Juneteenth, you should allow yourself the day to be left alone. If you're a Black person, like, you leave me the hell alone.
Exactly.
Solomon, what is your keep it today?
My concern is that shoes are getting chunkier and chunkier with every season that passes. And somebody who's grown up in the early 2000s and has bad ankles, I need us to revert back to shoes that are not heavy. And I don't want another generation to be in early orthopedics because of our bad decisions. It is. I feel like I'm now like it's now getting to like cartoon level sizes of shoes, and I'm just like I'm looking at them like, what are we trying to prove here? I need to know, first of all, that's not comfortable. I know it's not comfortable.
Right.
You are wearing gigantic galoshes. If they get a little bit of moisture is going to ruin your day. These shoes need to go back to a adequately normal size, and also you're not caring about us with narrow bony feet. I need a shoe that is. I'm just very concerned. The chunkier the shoe, the more cursed your feet will be, and I think we need to go back to a time of responsible shoe wear.
When I think of chunky shoe wear and who should be wearing it, you better be performing Groove Is in the Heart.
Oh my God!
You know what I'm saying?
Well, that's the thing. Like if it's a platform, like a chunky heel, perfect. But I'm talking about just sneakers that are getting like sideways big, front big, heel like. First of all, you're not 3 inches taller than you are. Let's go back. First of all, that's one thing I want to do. I want people to know what their actual height is and live in it.
That is sort of a thing of the past.
Yes.
Yeah, you're right. I have no idea at any given time, especially if I go to something like Queer where everybody has to wear like a Daria boot now. You know, it's like, so you're like 5'8", but now 6'2"?
Yeah,
It's very confusing.
It's wild. It is weird. Like, no, like it's if you're like, unless you're performing a drag performance in front of me, I think your heels should be reasonable.
Yeah. I concur. Yeah, the Kleenex box look. Yeah, you know what I mean? Just like, there's a reason we don't wear rectangular prisms on our feet.
Look, K-Swiss died and should have. And we do not need to return to that era of shoe.
Yeah. Angelica, what is your summer shoe wear of choice?
This is gonna be surprising for some, but like, if I'm just running a quick errand, a bitch is actually into Birkenstocks. My mom got me a pair, and I was like, wow. These are very comfortable. Beyond that, I'm also a masochist who will hold on to wearing my Doc Martens as long as possible throughout the year, like a fool. And then there comes always a point in the summer where I'm like, this is too hot. What are you doing to yourself? Why are you doing this?
I love that.
But
shit kickers.
it's just kind of like my
I
energy.
call them Garofalo's. Yes.
Exactly. But I have a really cute pair of sneakers to kind of go full circle on DC Comics stuff. These really cute pair of limited edition Pumas that are styled with art with Poison Ivy, and it was like linked to the Harley Quinn animated show. It's really pretty, like really rich green and red. I love the sneakers, but they're actually nice, so I try not to wear it too much. So usually it's Doc Martens.
Let me tell you something. I wear Doc Martens all the time. I also find it to be, they don't pay us in any way. I can't believe I'm saying this. I find them to be reasonably priced. Just like, like a good shoe, sturdy, I wear them all the time. I just think a boot looks good, generally speaking.
Me too.
I'm brainwashed also by Tomb Raider, which I think has made me think boots are what I should wear for the rest of my life. And also, like, again, the most glamorous person who ever had an anthropology degree, Lara Croft. No shade, of course, to Indiana Jones, but he's second place.
I've never actually owned a pair of Doc Martens, but since you guys discussed it, I might actually go out and get a pair today. Where would you recommend?
By the way, in terms of summer blockbusters, I cannot express how disappointing I find the Tomb Raider films. I was put on this earth to like a movie like that. A woman who gives like a saucy glare out of the side of her eye and then has to discover an amulet somewhere in China or whatever she does.
First of all, I enjoyed watching Angelina Jolie learn to do an English accent.
It was very funny.
And she never nailed it, but I enjoyed it.
Right. I'm sorry, to be Jon Voight's daughter and to achieve something even approaching cosmopolitan,
Yes.
I have to applaud.
Yeah, that's a good point.
My Keep It this week, yesterday, or today as we record this, it is Nicole Kidman's birthday. I think Nicole Kidman now has established herself just one of the greatest movie stars who ever lived. She's given at least 20 excellent performances, going back to the beginning of her career, which is now over 30 years. My Keep It is in defense of Nicole Kidman. My Keep It is to the Academy Awards last year for not nominating her for The Northman. I think she gave one of the best performances of the year last year. It was definitely a kind of a plum role. It's all about one big scene, which, by the way, nothing wrong with the supporting performance. That's all about one big scene if the scene is good enough. But anyway, it's it's Alexander Skarsgård on a sort of mythological journey. Lots of violence. It sort of looks like The Revenant at times, that movie. A little overlong for being such a simple story, but anyway, Nicole Kidman shows up and does the thing people always forget she does, which is be fucking twisted. She is not a normal person. This is somebody who signs onto a role and she goes, this is somebody who signs onto a role and she goes, give me 3 fucked up things to do. Have you seen The Paperboy recently? What? Nicole
That
did
movie's
that?
wild.
Watch
That is wild.
Emma Stone will never do something that fucked up in a movie. When you're from Australia, I think, and you eat that many bugs, look up the video of Nicole Kidman eating bugs, which she says she does.
I believe it.
Yeah.
I assume that's no choice. I feel like she just does it from your own hair if she wants to.
Yeah, right. She's like, what's happening in this wig? Ooh, a cricket. I just respect the unexpectedly deranged quality of many of her roles. She plays many conventional ones too, but routinely she's very funny. There's some mediocre misfires in there. You get like The Prom every once in a while. You get a 9 every once in a while. But for the most part, very glad we have her. And still, Rabbit Hole is my #1 favorite Nicole performance. Do you have a particular Nicole you cherish?
Probably Birth.
You can't just bring up
To
the
Die
movie
For
Birth.
is always going to be my...
And To Die For.
To Die For,
These
yeah,
are
would be
overwhelming
my
choices. Birth is a movie that, a rare genre, you're wondering if it's a supernatural movie. You can't tell as it's going along, you know? And you're like, I guess it's movie magic. I guess they could be tripping into something, paranormal here, but you're never sure. And of course, Anne Heche fabulous in that movie too.
Yes, I think it's a very intense movie. For some reason, I thought it was a good idea to show my mom several years ago, and she was like, "What the fuck are you showing?"
It is a very what the fuck movie, and also it's like. It has that indie quality where it's like an adult having a very strange relationship with a kid thing that only occurs in movies of that size. And To Die For, of course, maybe my favorite Joaquin Phoenix movie too.
Oh yeah, it is. He's a young guy in it.
Yes.
It's also probably like Matt Dillon's also finest work as well.
Yes,
it is such
correct.
But she plays that demented character so well, and I that's for me that was probably the first time I ever saw her do a villain in a film. And and I think every time she does a villain, it's so the only good part of the Golden Compass movie is her.
Right. Every once in a while we throw her in something like the Golden Compass. No, in To Die For, that to me has the particular feeling of a role she had to fight to get. Maybe there was some gay person in the wings who knew she would be great for it, but it just feels like the kind of role where she herself had to insist, "Oh no, I am a strange person." Look up her weirder choices. Look up Stoker. Look up Fur. These are movies that have a lot to offer in them.
Stoker is that girl. I just had a conversation with a friend about Stoker, and she was like, "Oh, have you ever seen Stoker?" And I'm like, "You mean the movie that has that really weird scene?"
Angelica just held up a postcard of Stoker.
Yeah, I made a bookmark of I saw that movie several times in theaters when it came out in 2013 or something. A little younger cinephile Angelica. Nicole Kidman was giving me what I want, which is if you're gonna do a movie about mommy issues, that mommy better be intense. She better be a little unhinged, and it gave it to me. I loved it.
Take that, Frances McDormand. All right, I consider that a shots fired, if you will. Thank you both for being here. My God, let's just do this. Let's kick Ira out more often. We accomplished so much more here, and with so many fewer accents.
Oh, I was gonna bring them in at the end.
Yeah, you puppets emerge from behind the table.
No, thank you. I love this.
If you both would like to pimp where we can see your work, please do. Solomon, you first.
Yeah, I'm Solomon Giorgio all across the board. I'm currently on strike as a writer, so please support the union and not the studios. So that's all I'm doing until further notice.
It is nice that it feels like everyone is supporting the writers. I can't really think of some celebrity voice jumping out being like, they're all wrong or whatever.
For now.
Yeah, right. There's still time. Angelica?
You can find me on Instagram. I have a Substack, but really you can mostly just find me at my main girl, Vulture and New York Magazine, where I have my job as a film and TV critic. And yeah, just, I don't know, Google me, Angelica Jade Bastien. You'll find Instagram and whatever silly shit I'm thinking about. But I'm not on Twitter. Thank God. I am free.
Wouldn't it be amazing if I just defended Twitter right now? You're wrong. There's a lot going on. Productive conversations, namely, that you're not privy to. This has been Keep It. We will see you next week.